I'd like to call to order our August 27th Jones County Board of Education special call meeting. I would like to thank all visitors, guests, and all those watching virtually in attendance. Ms. Candace, let the record show we have a quorum of 5 board members present in the boardroom. Mr. Griffin, Mr. Walston, myself, Mr. Brown, and Ms. Fillon. Also present in the boardroom, Superintendent Dr. Thigpen, Assistant Superintendent Mr. Markey, and on the phone, Colin Shive, Board Attorney Colin Shive. At this time, I'd like to ask all to stand for our Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Well, at this time, I'll ask if there's any adjustments to our agenda. Not, I'll entertain a motion to accept.
I'll make a motion to accept it.
I'll second.
Mr. Griffin made a motion. Mr. Walston second. All in favor say aye. All opposed say nay. Motion carries 5-0. Right over into our loan discussion item. Dr. Thigpen has asked for us to get together to discuss our mask requirement.
Board members, thank you for being here for this meeting, and I wanted to share some information with you, and we also have Bryce and Danielle here if you have any questions, but I wanted to kind of give you an update on what's transpired in these first 4 days since we've been in school. At this point, yesterday afternoon, we had 97 student quarantines, 10 positive student tests, 2 staffs that were quarantined, and 1 staff that was positive. Our staff vaccination rate is about 80%. Those numbers have changed a little bit this morning. They continue, we monitor it, and they're updated on the go. There's been 3 or 4 more additions. There's at least one more positive and a couple more, 3 more quarantined. So those numbers continue to increase. I went back and looked at where we were with student quarantines last year. And last year, it took us to December 4th to get to 67 quarantines. So we're ahead of where we were in December of last year with student quarantines. But I also understand, the situation is different with different variant and all that. But as far as students being out of the building, that's a comparison of where we were last year. So, I did this PowerPoint at a certain time. If you look at the people that are affected right now, we've got 97 quarantined, 10 positive tests, 107 students involved in that. So if we were masking, we would have 10 students that would be out of school. But because we are mask optional and everybody's not masking, we got those 10 plus an additional 97 students that are out of our building. And so for every 1 student we've got that's positive, we've got 9 more that are out of the building. And so that, that's a concern for us. This is a breakdown on where they were at each school as of yesterday. You can see a majority of them are at Jones Senior, but we've got positive tests in 1st, 5th, 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th, 11th grades. And so, we wanted to show you that data and discuss with you if you had any questions about it. But because we have so many kids that are missing school that most likely are not sick, we just feel like we need the kids in the building if we're going to do the best we can education-wise. And we know that the data shows us that if we have them in the building academically, they do better. And so we would want you to consider making masks mandatory K-12 for our district. We think at this time that that would be the best move. We do know that there's some legislation on the table that even if we do that, it has to be reviewed monthly, and reconsidered monthly. And so those, that's the information I want to share with you, and then we want to answer any questions that you may have concerning this.
Do you, you're recommending go to elementary schools as well, go to all mask mandate, even though we're not really having any positive tests there?
I do recommend that. I recommend it for two reasons. Number one, vaccinations are going to be, students that are 12 and older can get vaccinated. Those elementary kids cannot get a vaccination. And, we've got one of our buildings where we've got kids that range from K through 12. So we just think it would be better to have it, for all grade levels at this time.
Tell me, what are the masks gonna do? We put the kids in a mask. What does that change as far as the quarantine thing? Can you explain that to me?
Sure. So if we are let's say we have a positive test in a classroom with 25 kids, and everybody is masking, that one kid that tests positive goes home, and the other 24 are there, and that's the difference. We have one kid at home versus the whole class.
But that's the health department making us send the other kids home, even though they're not having the symptoms, no sign, no nothing, because they didn't have a mask.
Right. The policy for quarantine dictates that, although we have the option to choose, whether to make mask optional or not, we still have to play by the rules for the health department as far as how we respond.
So who sets that guideline? Is that the toolbox guideline?
Safe Schools Toolkit and the Department of Health and Human Services.
That's recommendations.
That's who.
Recommendations.
There's part of it that the Strong Schools Toolkit is, it says schools must do, and then there's part of it that's recommended that we do. But the bottom line is like, as far as closing the school down or shutting the school down, the health department makes that call. As they did, last year we had to deal with it.
Have they discussed any of that week one with the high school yet?
We have had some discussions about that because the cases are above 5, which is a cluster. This time they've not recommended and given us a direction to do.
Do you want us to provide how we feel right now, or is that something for later?
If y'all wanna do it, we just walk around the room and talk about it, however y'all. That's fine.
I don't mind starting.
Sure.
I've been on the phone a lot, with concerned parents, with some faculty. And when I say parents, it's been parents from the elementary, on up. I think since this started way before school started, the two big factors have been together since August 1st. When I say the two big factors involved, that was football and cheerleading. So this was an issue before school started. I just feel that if we can get past this rough spot with that we're gonna be back to normal, whatever normal is. So that's my first thought with that. And the way that's been handled, you guys are going by what your protocol is. But I feel like those 90, 5 days, and I don't mean if you've had a booster shot or not. We all, as older people, a lot of us got booster shot or got vaccines with the understanding that we probably are, 85, 90% in the clear. So just because you've had a booster shot, you should be home with the other 90, whatever. I don't care how old you are at that school. That's my opinion. After 5 days, these people that were not positive, they go back and get tested. If they can come back with a negative test, they should be back in that school learning. I mean, what is the possibility? I don't know what it is of them being positive, but holding them home for that long, and they may have been with them for 15 minutes within 3 foot. I'm not gonna say we're not. Now, once again, a lot of my information is coming from concerns. So that's how I feel about max 5 days, and let those people get tested and bring that test in. If it's negative, they shouldn't be missing school. It's again I understand that last year hand sanitizer was provided for every classroom in this county. It's not there unless the teachers bought it. So there's some things that we're not doing, and I know we got funding to do it. So that sort of bothered me. For those that would choose to wear a mask, let me go ahead and say, some of these masks are toilet paper thin. They are so thin, and this virus, as all of us know, is tiny droplets is all it takes. Those flimsy masks that are being worn are not gonna keep somebody from getting it or keep them from spreading it. If we're that strong about it, I think we should provide the mask. And they should be of some type of durability that it's medically approved. It may cost us, but once again, I understand that, we are allowed them to go to the cafeteria. Well, maybe that's another step we can take back from last year. Keep them more distanced. If we have to serve it, and let's just see if we can get through this rough spot. Another thing that's come to my concern is our thermostat being controlled at Raleigh. Maybe we can't control it, or we can. That's got to stop. Part of that building was 80 plus degrees last week at high school wing. These kids are sweating. They have chose to wear masks, some of them not. Teachers, some of them have, some of them not. The other side is cool. It has been turned in. There have been letters written. Any of us that's had microbiology or any type of disease control classes knows that is conducive to spreading anything if it's just a common cold. So I don't think we've done our part with that, and the parents realize that. And it's not, don't take this personal, any of you guys. Don't take it personal. If we don't control that thermostat, but we're paying them a fee, or I don't care if it makes our electric bill go up. If those kids and teachers and our other staff is comfortable, the custodial staff's comfortable, that's important to me. And it's cool enough, let them wear a jacket, especially in these days. So I can see that as, but with that being said, I do feel like that after we get through these first days and we can get these kids back in school, because that's where the cluster came from. And I know your number was 10 positive. That's 10 out of 1,017, 18 kids.
1%.
I'm not panicking over that right now. getting those 90 back in school, and some of them may be home sitting there negative, that's an issue. Because we know that our kids don't learn that well when they're at home, whether it be virtual or sending them their work. Because our test scores indicated that last year. So with those things said, I would like to stay optional until maybe we meet again at our regular scheduled meeting. We'll go back and readdress, try to get these kids back into school if they're negative. And if those that are out there that's had booster shots, they need to be tested too. And maybe they have been tested. When I say booster, I'm talking about the 2 shots. Cause, I mean, I know that I'm questionable about even going back and getting the booster. Is it gonna be effective? I went and I had my 2 shots and I've not had any issues, but I mean, we can let anything, and I care about kids first of all. And that's my biggest concern. And the people I've talked to know I care about kids, and that's why they talk to me. And I know you guys care about them also. But I don't think these flimsy masks are the answer. I don't care what kind of mask you got on. If you're in the right place at the wrong time, you're probably gonna get it. But let us do everything we can at the local level with providing what the necessities are, and maybe try to get them errors back. And I believe right now with the situation we're in, I think we need to go back taking those temperatures in the morning, because that's your first line of defense coming in. That catches that temperature right there. And that might be just a common cold. But I feel like going back to some of the things that we were practicing without having to go back and cancel school, or making everybody wear a mask. I don't think that's the answer. I think you can look at other counties and see that they've got numbers and they're in mask. So that's my opinion, and it's not a personal attack on anyone. That's just. And I've looked at a lot of stuff, and I've listened to a lot of people the last few days. So, and that's why I'm on this board, is I want them to talk to me.
Smile. Larry, you wanna go?
I agree with Debbie with taking temperatures, hand sanitizing. We need to get back serious, just like we were about last year, almost that serious. We still don't know what this thing is. It might change again, and we're going day to day, hour to hour with this. I would love to see us go to. I'm like Ms. Fial. I don't want, if we're going to go through the trouble to wear a mask, and I'm to the point right now with the regulations and us having to quarantine everybody who's been around. I don't see how we can not go back to mask until we can get the numbers to where they're not growing. I like to see a combination of mask, but good mask. Like if we're going to go through the trouble, and I want some kind of disciplinary action as far as people. If we're going mandatory mask, I'd love to see the kids. I'm not trying to be ugly, but I'm hearing from staff that the kids are wearing their mask when they're wearing them half down, with their nose not covered. I'd love to see a better mask. I'd love to see the hand sanitizer, and I'd like to see the mask worn properly. I'm not saying for the entire year. I'm saying it maybe a month at a time, 2 weeks at a time, until we can turn the curve on this thing. Because right now we can't. I'm like Ms. Fial, I want them in school, and even with the rules being different, I don't see how we can go not mask. Because of what you've got to quarantine by not going masked. The rules are different if you're not masked. Dr. Thigpen explained it great. And that's not our doing. But if we're not masked or make it optional, we're going to take a hit on this quarantine thing. We already have. I'd like to see the numbers start going down, and then maybe we could go back to mask optional. But right now, I would just love to see us take extra measures. Err on the side of safety. We got a tiger by the tail, y'all. We ain't been through it before. Excuse my grammar.
I've been thinking a lot about this. I mean, a lot, like everybody has. And I'm of the opinion we need to accept Dr. Thigpen and his staff's recommendation. Do a 2-week, 100% mask, all schools. And it's not because of the numbers, for me, it's the, I still don't understand how the toolbox toolkit fits in all this. To me, that sounds like a recommendation. That wasn't a
Mandate.
Mr. Cooper mandate, or Governor Cooper, I'm sorry, mandate. So I don't really know how, and maybe somebody can describe it later. To me, it just feels like that's a recommendation set forth for healthy schools.
For the mask.
But, you know, I think, Dr. Thigpen and his staff, they've done good, but we can't continue to operate with 100 kids at home. So, I mean, that's just that's the bottom line.
And I didn't want to mask the elementary, but we're seeing it in the 1st grade, 5th grade. We're seeing it in elementary, so.
So,
I think they came to school like that though, didn't they?
But only thing I say about elementary is that the numbers aren't bad. I wouldn't, for the mask.
I don't like the little ones having to wear a mask. I really
I
don't.
think it's more needed at the high school level. You see 93 core team. And I think 10 years down the road, we're gonna look back at ourselves and laugh out how we handle these situations.
But we can't be
83
too, you know, we gotta.
kids, with the mask mandate, football and cheerleaders would have been quarantined anyway because they don't practice with them. When we put this in place, somebody else is gonna pop positive on the football team. We're gonna be right back at 30 students in quarantine. So that's gonna help that number some. But again, they don't practice, they don't play with masks. So they're gonna be around someone without a mask and they're gonna be quarantined. The mask at high school will help that they're around the kids at school. But for the numbers at elementary, they don't seem bad because guess what? We're not gonna stop any positives. I mean, we're just not. Even with the masks, with the vaccinations, you know, it's goofy to me that kid around with the vaccination can go back to school. They can still be positive with the vaccination, but they can go back to school.
I was just thinking about trying to stop the quarantines. You know,
Well,
like, I agree with what you're saying.
And that's what I'm getting to. For me, it goes back to our basic duty, which the law calls us to do, and that's provide a sound basic education. First and foremost, 93 students ain't getting. My son was quarantined. You know what he did yesterday? Play video games. He didn't learn anything. He was at home quarantined, and he ain't getting that sound basic education. Ain't happening. So would I be in favor of the high school? Absolutely. Just because of the sports teams and that of that era. You know, they don't play sports in elementary school, so they ain't gonna be around the kids. But again, with the mask mandate, athletic teams will be quarantined because they ain't gonna be with masks on. And I think I don't think NCAA, HSA is recommending masks for sports this year, right?
No, I've had some discussions with other superintendents and different health directors in different health departments have, some of them have not required quarantine if both have masks on athletes. Some have gone strictly by the idea that athletics and extracurriculars aren't covered. So there's been some gray area and some difference from county to county with handling athletics.
You know,
With some health departments.
Craven County has a mask mandate. Craven County have a lot high in the newsline, like 132 quarantine.
Yep.
They shut down elementary with the mask mandate.
Right.
I'm looking at these numbers that you have up here, and I see Comfort Elementary's got 2 quarantined, but they didn't have anybody test positive. So that means they must have been around somebody outside of school to be quarantined to begin with. Or maybe got an older brother or sister. I can see doing the high school. I don't see the numbers for the elementary school,
I just don't.
in my opinion. I mean, I don't have a problem following y'all's, decision here on the school system, but I think, to me, it looks like it's unnecessary to require elementary kids to have a mask at this point. I mean, we can revisit, we're gonna be back in here in 10 days.
And it seems like we're gonna be revisiting this like monthly.
I don't see, if we put masks on everybody on Monday, how is that gonna change? I mean, I think you're still gonna see a few positive cases coming here, just like they're doing everywhere else. The only thing I see is if we'll be able to keep the kids in the classroom according, just because they're wearing a mask.
I mean, that's,
And so, I don't wanna go against y'all, I'm talking like your administration decisions, but I'm for mandating at the high school level, and I wouldn't, the elementary level, I'm not really for that, because it's gonna be real hard, but I can be outvoted. That's where I'm at. But just looking at the numbers, you got one student testing positive at Paulus Elementary, and and he's the only one evidently, or she's quarantined. There's nobody else quarantined, so that doesn't really make sense. Why don't we have more kids quarantined at the elementary level? We had one positive there. They just wasn't in school when they tested positive. What's the deal with that? You know what I'm asking? I mean, it doesn't look, it's totally different than our high school. We had 8 test positive, we got 90 some.
football team.
Well, but we got 90 some out. And then you got Pollocksville Elementary, which should at least have 10 or 12 kids in the
Class
classroom.
of 20 should have
And,
been.
and it should be 10 or 15 quarantine, and we're not seeing it. I mean, the quarantine's coming from somewhere else, so
Well, that,
mask ain't gonna matter either way, the way the numbers look, in my opinion.
So, excuse me, so some of the things we're seeing trend is that, we have a lot that are families and, they're not able to afford all of the testing for all their children.
The what?
They're not able to afford the testing for their children. So if they get a positive test as a brother or sister at a high school, then their siblings are, sent home as quarantine, but they're not being tested per se. So we have no even if they're symptomatic, if we do not have a positive, test, then we have no regulations to look at quarantining those students. It's only when a positive test shows up. Now, some of them, because this is the first week of school, we're looking at when they tested positive. We might have had 1 or 2 that actually tested, and I could actually go back and look at I have a run record of that the nurse keeps up with. So some of them may have actually tested positive. It might have been on the weekend, but because they're in quarantine for that 10 days or 7 days if they're negative, they're in quarantine this week, if that makes sense.
We've only had one situation where we had a student in a classroom to fit, wasn't that yesterday afternoon, an 8th grade student?
In 8,
Yeah.
yes.
Was that 10 or 14 days in,
We're doing the 7, 10, that's the
How
lowest
many?
option.
So
7 and 10. 7 with a test, you can come back. 10 with no test, you can come back. Instead of the 14 day.
wow, that's a lot of days out of school when they're probably sitting home negative maybe. I mean, there's 50% chance they're negative.
And DHHS recommends 14 with the options to reduce to 10 and 7, and that's what we chose, is to go with the least amount of days if they're fever free, no symptoms, and can get that negative test. If they can get that negative test.
One of the challenges that we've seen too as well is, we want it to be as low as possible. Right now, we have 92 kids at home that are not positive. They're not positive, they're at home, but, we have some families that they don't have even the transportation resources to go and get a test. So we're trying to even look into other avenues and how we can make that happen.
We're gonna have, make is the state vendor that can provide testing for us that you'll be presented with at the next board meeting that will provide testing that can do symptomatic or.
No. Can't the health department, social services
They
test
do-
them?
They do not have testing, they outsource it currently. I know that there was,
But it's free.
they're not doing it currently.
Uh-huh.
They've been outsourcing it, and the last time they did it was to an out-of-county, agency. There was someone in Pollocksville that was testing, but the ones that are free of charge, we did not have.
What if they vaccinate, they won't even test them?
I couldn't get tested.
We'll not test you.
I didn't get
We'll
the,
not.
I didn't get the answer to Billy's
I
question.
don't know.
So in the possible situation, why would there not be 20
Oh,
quarantines?
yeah, I didn't get that.
If
I don't
that student-
understand that.
If that student tested positive, let's say last Saturday,
Last Saturday.
our students were not in school.
Yeah, but this one
That don't
didn't
matter.
show up until,
Yeah.
because we had zeros
Yeah,
on the Monday report.
yeah.
And I can go back and look at my roster, I have every child in there, all that, I can go back and give you that information specifically.
But if he tested Saturday, he was in class Friday.
We weren't in, this is the
I'm
first
just-
week of
I
school.
mean, would that work that way though? I mean, he still was, I mean, if he
It's
was,
days.
right,
So if he tested on Saturday positive, then it's 10 days from their test date.
But
If he tests positive.
if he tested, if he got a test, a COVID test on Saturday, and it was a slow test, it would take 4 days for it to come back, so is that why it showed up later in the school day?
Some are PCR, we'll accept the PCR test or the antigen test.
Why can't we do the quick test? The rapid?
You're all
We
over
do
the place.
accept
yeah.
it. We accept both
The
if
right-
it's negative.
I thought it said the rapid wasn't though. I was informed that the rapid. you couldn't accept.
Yeah, and some parents have gotten some mixed communication with that.
Previously, we
They
were
were
not
told they
able
couldn't
to.
do it.
That was just the other day that I was told that the rapid
Yeah, this
wasn't
week.
accepted.
Well, previously, we were told that we had to wait for the PCR to come back. Now, the guidance here is saying we can take either, but then they will also find out that PCR test, typically 48 to 72 hours.
So from this 93, did any actual classrooms fall out? Or this can't be our cheerleader football number.
Yes, we we have 8 classrooms
That fell out.
that, and now some of them were also football or cheerleaders, so, with our high school, we had 63 kids that would have been affected, but 30 of them were already in quarantine, so there was only 32 additional.
That's why I say if we can get through this first episode of this, I can see our numbers coming down.
It's gonna happen again though.
Huh?
It's gonna happen again with practices. I mean, it's gonna happen again. Football, it's gonna be at the football field without a mask. Cheerleaders gonna be without a mask. Tennis gonna be without a mask. It's gonna happen. That's why I can see the high school having these on.
Okay. So, not a whole lot of discussion. I mean, I feel like we could probably all agree or maybe even accept the motion for a blended type math situation that doesn't affect our elementary schools. That would mass to high schools. I could even go along with that. And when I say high school, I'm talking about 6 through 12. So. I would need a motion for that.
So you want a motion that you mandate 6 through 12 with masks, and then the elementary level, leave them at mask optional? Is that the motion you want?
That's what I'd be looking for. Well, that's what it sounds like is,
Could we get something to include temperature testing and hand, sanitation maybe.
And a
some-
temperature variant.
That's what I'm saying, and some distancing.
Well, we were told about the temperature checking that it
We told it's,
really,
Not affect
no,
the
it's
spring.
irrelevant because you could be absolutely perfectly healthy and still carry the virus in. The temperature check doesn't.
Yeah, they quit checking it at the hospitals and everywhere because it's people that get out of a hot car, come in and they're testing 101. You know, just driving from one doctor's office to another. Actually, it was actually a doctor went to my wife's office and he drove down the street from urology to her office for a cardiologist appointment and he tested positive. I mean, he tested temperature was like 100.5 or so, 100 point and a half or whatever, and he was fine. So they just quit doing it. So he just got in his car and drove,
Okay.
2 blocks down the road.
You feel like distancing would help?
Well, I mean, I like.
what they doing that now though, right?
Okay.
As much as
What's
we can.
that?
Social distancing,
As much as we
you know?
I know that the stressing it kind of fell off.
I think the cafeteria is sort of packed at one time, and then they don't have masks on in there because of eating.
The cafeteria, the water fountains.
Water fountains are not in use. We blocked them off. And the building temperature, there's been some discussion with them about that. What we were told about the building temperature is that when it's 100 degrees outside, the AC unit can drop at 20 degrees. And so they've been changing set points and stuff to try to fix the temperature and improve upon that by having it come on earlier. Tim has been working with them for this week, 2 or 3 days, and they've been changing different things to try to get the temperature. The day that I went out there and when the classroom, the students told me about it being warming. And so I know that that's something that they're working on.
Not to depend on your comparison last year, just to help me, there wasn't no football at the beginning of the year last year, right? Or cheerleading, was that?
No,
We
I
didn't do
don't think
football.
we had athletics.
Until basketball maybe?
I believe that's correct. I believe that's
No,
correct.
they started at the end of volleyball, didn't they? We had
Sports didn't
volleyball last
I remember,
It was,
in the fall, I mean, it was-
end of the fall is when sports began last year.
Yeah, volleyball got, an abbreviated season.
There's a lot of.
All of them were
virtual.
abbreviated.
in 2 days.
Yes, that's correct.
But I mean, that's all we had to go by.
Yeah, I know, I mean, that's what, I couldn't remember if
Yeah.
football didn't go into the
Mm-mm.
spring, right?
We didn't have it, it was in the spring.
All right, I'd like, if I can, to ask Dr. Thigpen a question, and Danielle and Bryce, y'all can chime in too as well. If we were to do a motion to make 6 through 12 masks and 5 down optional, how is that gonna affect y'all's decision making, or how do you think that's gonna, what is your opinion if we do that, is gonna be the outcome?
Well, I
You
do
think we're
think,
gonna see an increase or, or decrease or whatever, what do you think?
I think that the masking will help. I think by masking, we've done about all we can do. I don't know what else we can do other than the sanitation, the masking. That's all we can do as far as health goes, and make sure we're operating with fidelity. And we were aware that there are schools that are masking that are still having issues with it. Right now at this point, we've not had any elementary kids of significant numbers getting in trouble, but that would be, we don't want, we don't want that either. We want to do what we can to help the situation. And so, I just think we make every effort we can. There's things that are going to happen outside of school buildings to help, mediate the situation that, that we can't fix everything. We just can't do it. There's things that have to happen outside
So
of school
everything's
buildings.
not our fault.
And so we
No, I
can
mean,
do
they're going bowling,
everything we can
skating,
do.
they're going out.
Yeah,
on the
last year,
weekends with no mask. I mean,
the last year, the problems that we did have were when kids were gone on the weekend to travel ball and things like that, and came back, and so, we don't,
We can't control
got,
their life.
we control, there's a circle of things that we can take care of, but there's a circle of things that, larger than that, that the outside families have to take care of.
Look,
And that's my, and I guess that would be my question. We made that decision of mass option. We made it. And you know, you got families that don't want it, they don't want it. I mean, and I haven't seen it or whatever, but you've been to the schools. What percentage of students are wearing masks?
Elementary school, you're looking at about 75% of the students. And at the high school, it is significantly lower than that.
you said 75% of the students in elementary schools are wearing masks?
By choice.
I've heard that
That's
as well.
astounding.
Well then, in my opinion, we just leave the
Yeah.
elementary schools like they are.
That's it.
I mean, cause,
Right.
I mean, that's just what I'm feeling.
Right, and one of the things that's a start in the right direction is if parents at that age group are already, you know, asking their children to wear masks, you know, then politically, on that side of it, it's a little less harmless.
That's,
You know, but 6 through 12, what's happening right now is for every kid that's testing positive, 9 more kids are going home
yeah.
because of the
Times.
policies.
Times 4, because that kid may have switched classes, right? He's gone in multiple classes during class change.
Right, and that's also a significant difference between the 6-12 group and our elementary kids. Our elementary kids are contained in one room
Right.
the majority of the day.
I hate to say this, but what about the teachers that had those, classrooms?
80% vaccinated though.
Yeah,
I mean, that's
80%
Well, it don't matter if you're vaccinated, you can still get
But
it.
they gonna have to quarantine. I mean,
But
again,
I'm
10
not-
years from now, we're gonna be laughing at it.
What is-
I
I hope
agree
so,
with all
I hope you're
that.
right.
Significantly lower, you
10 years
mean,
later.
you're thinking like 10 to
I don't know
15%?
if I'd go in.
Look at that.
It's probably about 25%.
Really?
Mm.
And that's strange. I mean, you do hear people, well, why did y'all make that decision? And I figured those same parents will make their kids buy masks. And I'm listening here. They don't make them wear them. So, I mean,
They're not.
you have that option, but that is, wow.
And ironically, the federal laws, they have to wear them on the bus in the morning if they're a bus rider.
Yeah.
And when they get off the bus, they're stuffing them right in the car.
So I will show this to you. It's not, I looked this morning. There's 90 of 115 school districts requiring masks at this point in time. I think there's 38 or 39 districts that have gone back. So you see the ones that are highlighted that are still not requiring masks and where we're in. So this dilemma isn't, y'all are not the only, you know, it's the dilemma that the other districts are having to make choices about as well.
And what is that?
The counties that are a blue shade are the counties remaining that have not gone with a mask mandate. 90 of 115 school
For
districts
option.
are requiring masks.
I wanna go back to this chart one more time before on the Trenton Elementary thing, it says there's 2 tested positive, but there's only 1 quarantining. Is that gonna be 3 kids are quarantining total, or is it the 1?
With the positives home.
You got 2 positive and only 1 student quarantining at Trenton Elementary. So that does that.
So the one that quarantined at Trenton actually has 2 older brothers at.
But what are the 2 that tested positive doing? Are they not
They're
quarantined
home-
too?
Yeah, they're home too. We separated out by those, who
Okay.
are
Positive
symptomatic,
and-
close contact. Yeah.
All right, now, I just wanted to, I mean, it's the only one that I see that, you know, I didn't know whether the number, it was a lower number, because 8 out of 93, I didn't know whether 8 was included in the 93, but it's actually,
There
it's
is-
actually 101.
Yeah,
Just
all
walk out.
total, the positives are also home.
Yes,
Yeah, okay.
And that's the vaccination percentage?
80.
80.
No, that map.
This is the counties that remain mask optional.
But I was looking at this.
There's a percentage
There's a
vaccinated,
percent, yeah.
12.
You can highlight on it and it'll tell you if I hadn't clipped it. I think hold on a second, I believe I've got it right here. In Jones County's vaccination rate is 45%.
Of 12 and over. Or under, is that 12 and over?
45% of 12 and over, yes.
Is that for the county population or the school population is 45%?
Just students.
That's anybody 12 and over.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
I think, I was listening to the news, Pamlico, they're also an optional mass county, and they have the best rate. I think they've gotten three kids out of 1,200 positive right now, and they are a optional county.
And they're fixing to change, I believe.
Do you think they got some more
I know
coming in?
there's been some discussion with them considering going back to mask. I don't, we'll see.
I'll make a motion to, so we can get this meeting over with, that we make mandate mask at 6 through 12, leave elementary optional.
With a good, strong recommendation for elementary, if we could. Now, I may not mandate it, but please recommend it good and strong.
Is that a second, Larry?
Yes, it is.
I've got a motion by Mr. Griffin to make mask mandatory at the high school, 6 through 12. Make mask remain optional for K through 5. Mr. Walston seconded. All in favor say aye. Aye.
We just made half.
All opposed say nay.
I think things will get better, but I have to say,
That was a nay.
yes.
4-1. Motion carries.
What, we're gonna revisit this again in 2 weeks anyway, we can see the numbers.
I like
And if it gets out of hand, I'll make a motion to give Dr. Zigman to go ahead and mandate masks across the board if we needed to do that. So we don't have to have another meeting, if it gets out of hand. Do y'all
We're
have,
gonna be revisiting it every month, right?
Yes, sir.
Possibly every week.
Let's wait until,
well, I'm just saying, we have a balloon next
13th.
week, then we, you know.
Yeah,
I wouldn't do it without communicating with all of them.
Yeah.
Well, I understand that, but I mean, we wouldn't have to pull in the mask, go through another hour of discussion.
Marquis, so with the mandate with the buses, sound like the elementary kids are keeping their masks on once they get off the bus.
Yes, and then of course, elementary students cannot drive themselves to school.
That makes sense.
So we have a lot more elementary students that ride the bus and have a mask.
And it sounds like, I mean, the elementary's already got a mask mandate.
Yeah, well, I mean,
With them having.
with him saying 75%, I think that's pretty
That's
good.
really good.
Well, we'll see as the weeks go.
Yeah.
Obviously,
we
the
may
numbers-
go back and readdress and go back to optional at some point.
We gotta revisit it anyway, every 30 days anyway, right?
According to the legislation that's coming around, I think each month we have to evaluate.
Would you look in and see what Ms. Theall said if we're gonna do this, and we maybe get a little bit better masks where they're needed?
We'll check it.
And could we please make sure that
Yes.
they're full?
It's the Monday,
Yes, yes.
a week
Some
after
of them have
Labor Day.
tailored.
There's none. Anyone?
And hand
They're in the
sanitizer.
hall.
If we can,
Okay.
every little thing you can think of.
But-
Thank y'all.
Like a teacher.
Any further discussion by the board, superintendent?
Thank y'all so
I'm
much.
good.
Being no further business of the board, this concludes our August 27th special call board meeting. Our next meeting will be September 13th at 5 p.m. this August. Entertain a motion to adjourn.
A motion to adjourn?
Mr. Walston,
Second.
Mr. Griffin, all in favor say aye. All opposed say nay.
Never mind.
Motion carries, meeting adjourned.
I'm sorry.